In 2010, I created a mentoring program called Advising Generation Z. This program specializes in improving the behaviors of 5th through 12th grade students. September 5th of 2010 was the day that I signed my first client. It was a school district and a municipal court that would hire my program to take 150 of their roughest students and turn them into leaders. I can still remember the question that I got asked on that day by an administrator. He said, "Kristen, what makes you believe that giving some of the most challenging students a shot at leadership will work in improving their behavior?" His question led me to give this response. I believe that it'll work because it worked for me. You see, from the 6th grade until my freshman year in high school, I was a bully. My teachers would use words like ringleader, plotter, and too headstrong when they described me. And the notes written on my transcript said things like, "Kristen consistently breaks rules, but because she bullies her teachers and her peers, no one is willing to speak out against her." It's so funny when I think about that, because I heard that all the time. And if I'm honest, everything that they said about me was true. In fact, I would intentionally become friends with students that I knew I could manipulate into lying, cheating, stealing, and defending me by any means necessary. Now, I'll be honest, I was never really afraid of the consequences that would happen to me at school if I got caught. But I dreaded the consequences that would be waiting for me at home once my mother found out. You see, my mother, a VP at a Fortune 500 company, she wasn't like most parents when it came to punishing. Now, don't get me wrong, my mother is from Mississippi, so she did believe in giving me a whooping. But she also believed in forcing me to write chapters out of the dictionary for every offense written on an office referral. So by the time I made it to the 9th grade, I had already written to the letter O in the dictionary. I can also remember during my bullying stage that I had a lot of interventions with administrators and counselors who offered me all types of incentives to improve my behavior. But nothing that they offered me was going to work, because what I so desperately wanted was for my father to come back home. You see, after he and my mother divorced, he moved from Dallas, Texas, all the way to South Africa. And so every time I made a bad decision at school, there was a small part of me that hoped they would contact both of my parents. But every time, they only contacted my mother. So I continued to bully. That is until one day, my school finally outsmarted me by installing cameras in various parts of the school over the weekend. So on Monday, when I returned to school, being the bully, the ringleader, the plotter, and too headstrong, I would finally give them the evidence that they needed to expel me from that school district. You see, they caught me on camera bullying a student, then peer pressuring 9 of my friends to join in with me. Then I used the school phone to contact that student's parent and threaten her into not speaking out against us. I didn't know this at the time, but being expelled from that school district would be one of the best things that would ever happen to me, because it would force me to become a new student at Northwest High School, where I would meet Dr. Linda Parker, the administrator who not only inspired me to improve my own behavior, but she gave me my first shot at leadership. I had only been a new student at Northwest for 3 days before I received a letter from Dr. Parker. When I reported to her office, she had student files all over her desk and my file in her hand. She said, "Kristen, Did you know that Northwest has about 2,500 students that go here? And of all of those students, only 15 are African American. And there's just about 2% in the entire school district. For this reason, Northwest has never celebrated Black History Month. But in a couple of weeks, we're going to have an influx of African American students relocating here to Northwest because of the Hurricane Katrina incident that happened in New Orleans. And when those students arrive to Northwest, I want them to feel like they belong. So I've been searching through all of these student files, trying to find that one student who would be strong enough to persuade the majority Caucasian student body into celebrating Black history. And when I came across your file, I knew that you were the student I had been looking for. Now, I can still remember the thoughts that were going on in my mind as I heard the words that came out of Dr. Parker's mouth. I remember thinking to myself, this white lady is crazy. I mean, doesn't she have to know how to read to be an assistant principal? Because there's no way she could have read my file that clearly tells her I'm a bully, a ringleader, a plotter, and too headstrong. Yet here she is asking me for help. So I responded to Dr. Parker the way that any challenging student would respond to this. I folded my arms and I told her, I don't want to be the face of all Blacks. Find another student. But Dr. Parker sat back in her chair holding my file. And she said, Kristen, that's too bad. Because before you came into my office, I called your mother. And she told me that the only plans you had before and after school would be writing your own version of the dictionary. So she suggested that you not only come up with the Black History Month program, but that I have you come up with initiatives for the entire month of February. So from that phone call with your mother, I found 5 students, a teacher, and I've given them a budget. And they're going to help you execute any idea that you can think of. Because when I read your file, Kristen, I don't see any of the negative things that they've said about you. No, what I see is a misguided leader waiting to be redirected. So I'm going to give you this shot at leadership. And I'm going to challenge you to rise to the occasion. So when I left Dr. Parker's office, got home to my mother, who gave me an ultimatum. Continue writing my own version of the dictionary for the entire year, or come up with initiatives for the entire month of February. We can all guess which option I chose, right? Here's a picture of my mother and Dr. Parker today. Now, there were 4 ways that Dr. Parker was able to inspire me to improve my own behavior while giving me this shot at leadership. The first way that she did this is that she was straightforward. She told me exactly what the problem was in her school and why she needed my help to solve this problem. And this is exactly what I plan to do with the 150 of your roughest students that are referred to my program. I plan to help them see the issues that are happening in their schools and in their communities, and then I plan to invite them to use their unique skill sets to help me solve those problems. The second way that Dr. Parker was able to inspire me to improve my own behavior while giving me this shot at leadership is that she pulled at my heartstrings by giving me an assignment that was bigger than myself and contacting my mother to ensure that I understood the importance of this assignment. And this is exactly what I plan to do with the 150 of your roughest students that are referred to my program. I plan to pull at their heartstrings by sending them out on initiatives that require them to be selfless and contacting their loved ones to make sure that they understand the importance of participating. Now, we begin celebrating Black History Month by hanging up Black facts on bulletin boards all around the school. We highlighted an influential person of color during the morning announcements, and we had soul food catered in during lunch. And unfortunately, Because I was the face of leading this initiative, it caused me to encounter racism for the first time. You see, there were a few Caucasian students that weren't happy about celebrating Black History Month. So they tore down all of the signs that we had hung up around the school. They interrupted us during the morning announcements, and there were even a few students that got my face spray painted on t-shirts with big red X's going across the middle of them. And because Dr. Parker knew that I was the type of student that could cause an uproar, she called all of my teachers and told them that I was to report to her office before and after class, no questions asked. And when I would arrive to Dr. Parker's office, I could cry, I could vent, I could do whatever I needed to do to get it out of my system. But when I was finished, Dr. Parker would turn to me and she would say, "Kristen, you have a right to be offended, but you do not have a right to stay offended. Your basic human right is to be the only one in control of your emotions, your thoughts, your words, and your actions. So don't you dare give your power away to those students. You let me handle them while you focus on successfully completing the task." And so every time I encountered a racist student and the bully in me wanted to respond, I would recite the words of Dr. Parker, and I would focus on successfully completing the task. And this is the third way that Dr. Parker was able to inspire me to improve my own behavior. She taught me how to be offenseless. And this is exactly what I plan to do with 150 of your roughest students that are referred to my program. I plan to teach them how to channel their inner anger and use it for good. I also plan to teach them the words of Dr. Linda Parker. We ended celebrating Black History Month by having a pep rally where I was able to secure former Dallas Cowboy player Andre Gerard to be our keynote speaker. When Andre arrived to the gym and spoke to more than 2,500 of my peers about diversity and inclusion, the importance of celebrating Black culture, and how proud he was to be a Dallas Cowboy player, I remember standing in that gym that day thinking to myself, before Dr. Parker had given me this shot at leadership, I had always saw myself as being a bully, a ringleader, a plotter, and too headstrong. But that day in the gym, I felt comfortable walking into my true identity of being a leader, strategic, determined, and assertive. And this is the fourth way that Dr. Parker was able to inspire me to improve my own behavior while giving me this shot at leadership. She gave me an opportunity to see myself transform. And this is exactly what I plan to do with the 150 of your roughest students that are referred to my program. I plan to hold their hands as they walk into their new identity. Needless to say, when I finished sharing this story in response to the question that I got asked in September of 2010 by that administrator, his school district and their municipal court were happy to become my first client. It's been 9 years since then. And today, my program has assisted over 11 school districts, 4 municipal courts, and we've served over 5,217 students by giving them a shot at leadership. I want to be very clear that I'm not making excuses for students who bully or are more challenging. So I'd like to take this opportunity right now to apologize to any student who has ever been hurt by one of us, to any authority figure who's been disrespected by one of us, and to every parent who has ever had their heart broken by one of us. At the core of every bully and every challenging student is the fact that we are misguided leaders waiting to be redirected. So I'd like to take this time to thank every youth practitioner who has been as bold and as courageous as Dr. Parker was in giving a student like me a shot at leadership. While I don't have all of the answers, I do believe that if we start allocating more resources to provide students like me with a shot at leadership, not only will we inspire them to improve their own behavior, but we'll begin to spark the curiosity in them to discover how they're going to positively impact the world. I still get asked this question, Kristen, what makes you believe that giving some of the most challenging students a shot at leadership will work? And my answer hasn't changed. I believe that it'll work because it worked for me. Thank you.